Hi everybody, so I'm going to go over how you can use wire crochet and actually add it on to a chain because it can be really beautiful. So this is an example of one right here where I took the chain and then I wire crocheted into the piece and it makes a really beautiful collar, okay? So you first want to make sure that you are comfortable with the double crochet, and so that is explained in the video above, and you want to make sure and practice that with yarn and feel comfortable with it before you switch to the wire because it's a little bit more complicated to do with the wire. Okay, so next you need to get your chain. I picked my chain up at AC Moore. You can also get it, I've gotten some at Potomac Bead Company. It doesn't need to be anything super fancy, but a couple tips for you from my own mistakes. So one, you want it to be a larger chain because you need to be able to fit your crochet hook through it. So if it's a really thin chain, it's probably going to drive you crazy. So go a little bit bigger like this one, or this one has pretty big openings as well. The other thing that you want to check, which this one I did not check, so learn from me, is that all of the little jump rings on your chain are actually closed. And so this chain, they have openings. The problem with that is because the wire is so thin, when you're starting to crochet with that, it tends to jump out of those little openings and makes it really complicated. So you want to try and check that. If they do have the openings, you can use jeweler's glue and go along very carefully and kind of seal each one of those shut. Personally, I think that takes a long time and sort of drives me crazy, but you have to know your level of patience, okay? So the next important thing to think about, and some of this you're going to have to do a little bit of playing because it varies from chain to chain, is you need to play with it so that your piece actually sort of curves. And so we're going to be adding some stitches, which is what I'm going to show you how to do. But like I said, you are going to have to play with it a little bit depending on what size hook you use and what size chain you use. So my hook that I'm using today is a 0, okay? And then I'm going to pull up some scrap wire that I have. All right, to get started, you're really using your chain as though it is your first chain stitch in crochet. So you're skipping that step of the crochet because that's what the chain is already acting as. So you're going to take your crochet hook and it's really your choice. You can do like this one. I did the whole chain. But you can also do just a small like little bib in the front if you don't want to do as much. So I think that's what we're going to play with today so that I can turn around for you a little bit faster. So you're going to put your hook through your chain and then you're taking your wire and you're bending it so you have a little bit of a loop that you're creating and you're bringing that through your chain. Okay, and then this is where we're doing the double crochet. So you're taking your yarn behind and back into the front and pulling through, and that's just to get us attached. Now it's time to double crochet. Okay, so yarn to the front, or wire. You're going back through the same chain that you already did, which I'm going to explain why in a moment. Bring the yarn to the front, and then you're pulling through the chain, and then yarn over, and you're taking 2 off and then 2 more off. Sorry that I keep calling the wire yarn. Okay, now this is where I talked about that you have to play and add some stitches. You need your crochet piece to be growing at the same width as your chain. Otherwise, it's really gonna pull itself together. So most of the time, I do 2 crochet stitches in each chain. And what that essentially is doing, if you're not really familiar with crochet, that's how you add stitches and that's how you make something go a little bit wider, okay? And so you're going to do 2 stitches in every single chain. If you have an even larger chain, or are using a slightly smaller hook, you might need to do 3 or 4, and that's something that you really just have to play with a little bit. The way to check that you've made the right decision is with the stitches. After you make a couple, you want to lay it down and make sure that your chain still has room to totally stretch out, and then it's not being forced to kind of end up all knotted together. And really, you're just going to keep on doing that double crochet, and when you want to turn around, you're going to turn around just like I showed you in the video and do double crochet back the other way until it's the size that you want it to be. So for this one, just in case you're interested in getting a look sort of like this, for my very first row, this one has 3 rows of double crochet. So I went this way, turned around, went this way, turned around, went this way. For the first row, I did it without any beads because I find it a little bit challenging to get the first row started, so I just didn't even want to deal with the beads in that row. Then when I came back around is when I started to add the beads. Okay, the other thing that you're going to need to do is as you grow your rows, you're going to continue to need to add stitches. Okay, so you're going to be putting 2 in every stitch going this way, continuing with 2, and when you get in here to the center, because we need to allow room for it to bend. So for about 5 or 6 stitches in the center, you're actually going to switch and do 3. And then go back to 2, okay? And when you turn around, the same thing. You're doing 2, and then for about, now we're going to go up to 6 or 7 stitches, you're going to go through the same place 3 times, which is going to help give your necklace room to actually bend and drape around your neck. Okay, you may find when you're doing the wire crochet that it's a little bit challenging to see exactly where to put your hook through, and to be honest with you, it's okay if you don't do it perfectly. If it goes through somewhere close to where it's supposed to, you're really not going to be able to tell. All right, and once again, just like with the other one, you really can add, you could add no beads, bigger beads, or as many beads as you want to. That's really totally up to you. Then one last fun thing, okay, so a couple things about this one. This is a little bit more the bib like I talked about, so I didn't crochet the whole chain. I started more in the center because I was really trying to make a statement necklace, but it was going to get too big if I did the entire chain, okay? So this one, I did add beads every single row, and there are, just so you know, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 rows of wire crochet. And then I actually went and added yarn, so 2, 3 rows of yarn. To switch to the yarn is really, really simple, okay? So if you're done with the wire, you're going to cut your wire, knot that off, and wrap it in. And then you're just going to get your yarn and start crocheting just like you would, but you're doing it with the yarn. It can be really fun because it adds another lacy effect to it. Just so you know, the yarn that I used in this is Tencel, and it is size 8 and 2. You can purchase it at a couple places online. I purchased mine at the Mannings in East Berlin. So I find that yarn works really well too. It's very elegant and will give you a bit of a lacy feel. And then the last thing that I did, because I was just having a lot of fun with this piece, is I added so that I could have some fun dangly beads coming off of the end. And so it just turned into this really fun, elegant statement necklace. Yes, this does take quite a while if you want to make a piece like this, but it's really, really fun to do, and it's easy to pick up and put down. So I hope that you found some of these tips helpful and inspirational as you continue to explore your wire crochet. And I'm going to share a couple other links with you. So I did share a link to my Pinterest board. You do not have to have a Pinterest account to actually view that. So you might want to check that out, of different wire crochet ideas. And then I'm also going to post a link to my Pinterest board that has a whole bunch of tips for crocheting, can give you different stitches and help you out with that a little bit. Thanks so much, and I hope you have fun creating.